Sean, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. I hope to have you guys on the edge of your seat the whole way as we discuss how to not have service upgrades slash heavy ups. So, hello, y'all. Pardon me. Let me get my throat clear. So, I did not know what a heavy up was before you guys asked me to make this presentation. I speak in service upgrades. I had to do a whole like AI search, like what is a heavy up? It's apparently something that you all say, and apparently all over But anyway, so heavy up is the same thing as a service upgrade. We'll get there. These resources are here for you. On the left-hand side, it's a pocket guide to all electric retrofits. It's on our website. It's for free. On the right-hand side, we have a tab on our website that's called a Watt Diet Calculator, and there's multiple YouTube links out there. We've presented on it many times, how to avoid heavy ups and service upgrades. And the calculator that's on our website is a download for free, so you can plan your own home electrification. To say hi, I have been at this since 1995, about 30 years now. There's a demonstration house that is associated with, it was off grid at the time. I installed a wind turbine, a new solar array, a biodiesel generator, all those things, and so many more. So I come from this sort of like deep home learning. I grew up on a farm that's back to lander, did all of our food in the pantry all fall. Oh my God. So then was an unsuccessful high school science teacher. Realized I should probably go into development because I have a potty mouth and I just could not keep myself together in front of middle schoolers. They're so difficult. So, I went into development and succeeded in making the nation's first zero net energy apartment complex, the nation's first zero net energy housing development, 26 houses. That was like 2011 to 2014. And then I've led the charge since then in making all electric, 100% solar powered housing for zero net energy apartments in New Mexico, Nevada, Michigan, doing this cool project here on the bottom. So I want to give a quick story about this heavy up thing, the service upgrades. Back in 120 years ago or so, very little electricity anywhere in the country. The first places to get it were the commercial cores of the downtowns. All right. But this left the country out of the mix. No one in the country had electricity, including many people in the city didn't. So there was this huge movement of microgrids. People getting usually a generator, gas generator, large battery banks, and they were sold by like Delco Light and such, so you could have lighting in your homes. This changed because of federal policy. In the 1930s, one of the alphabet soups of agencies that was created was the Rural Electrification Administration. And you can see in green on the bottom how much of our nation was electrified with the Rural Electrification Administration. Just look at Alaska at the bottom. That's like where everyone lives. So this guy on the right, this kid is so excited because he's got a hybrid tractor, and you can see the tractor charger up on the wall. Hybrid, keep in mind, means there's electricity to start the engine, not a mechanical crank. There's lighting in there. There's a battery that then provides lighting and radio and all the rest of it. It got more and more sophisticated. But this is a wonderful thing. Just bringing electricity to America has allowed us to transition from having a hard start with a fossil fuel engine to at least having a soft start and having a lot of electrical services in our vehicles as we've gone from pure gas, which was the minority of cars. Electric cars were the number one cars in 1900 because they had so many more services, to gas electric hybrids up until like the Prius in 2001 that sort of shifted it. Okay, 1936, we get our first demonstration all electric home. Keep in mind, this was a mansion to show off what could be done by Westinghouse. In 1923, there was a fire in Berkeley, burned down 50 city blocks, and they banned gas in construction for about a decade. In the 1920s, there were already 30 amp houses all throughout Berkeley as they rebuilt the city for the next, 10 years, 20 years. So this is just how fancy it can get, wear your pearls and such and sit next to your electric heater. So trying to get everyone to be able to go all electric was a on purpose movement by General Electric, Westinghouse, and about 1,900 electric utilities across the nation. They hired one of the big stars in Hollywood, Ronald Reagan. He just retired, but he knew everybody as the head of the president of the Actors Union. He's the president of the Actors Union. Big business, they want to open nuclear power plants. It's a nuclear age, everyone gets a flying car and electricity is free. And they hired all of the Hollywood stars to put on the number one television show on Sunday nights. You'd go show up just when they're inventing TV and you'd perform theater in front of a TV camera. People loved it. They had a jingle, live better electrically, and the goal was to get 100 amp services. That's enough to go all electric. And they won in 1962 after these crazy ad campaigns shaming women if they didn't have enough electric appliances, shaming men if their house wasn't electric because that wasn't a warm, nice house that was safe for the family. They went hardcore, madmen. Madmen were hired by GE and Westinghouse as big money to figure out how to get in people's heads. All that was just to get to the 1962 National Electrical Code proceedings once every 3 years, and they jumped from a 60 amp threshold, really hard to go all electric, especially with 1950s efficiency, to 100 amps. You could do it with an average 1,400 square foot house, 1,500 square foot house being built, all electric. To this very day, that's true. This is the peak draw in Sacramento of gas using houses in blue and all electric homes in orange. If you draw a line down, you can see that the peak is usually around 32 amps out of the 100 available to them in the whole year. And you go all the way over the trailing edge, and people pretty much stop even using electricity at 80 amps. It doesn't matter how big your house is or what you're doing. It is hard to use 80 amps at once. You have to just have everything on. So this is to say, just to demonstrate this is true. 100 amps, more than enough to this very moment for any old house. Is there a question, Rachel? I just want to put out there, if you guys have any questions as you go along, the one thing I did learn how to do as a science teacher, not my potty mouth, but how to respond to questions the whole way along. So anyone has a question, I want to answer your question. This is for you, right? Not for me. It's for you. So if you've got any questions. So in 2009 was the big game changer that we should all be aware of. That's when a technology invented in 2001 in some American national labs, Oak Ridge National Lab, et cetera, got translated over into Japan. It's called adding a computer. And you remember not so long ago when adding a computer was a big deal? Maybe some of you don't remember. I'll take that back. But it was. In 2009, they added computers to heat pumps. A heat pump is a reversible air conditioner. When you're standing outside during air conditioning season, you're standing in front of like a blast of heat. You just turn it in reverse. In the wintertime, you stand in front of a blast of cold and the heat is going inside your house. But if you add a computer, it's like going from a single speed bicycle to like a Tour de France 32 speed bicycle. You can set so many more increments and you can make it so when it's cold outside, you can spin really fast and go up the mountain of pulling heat inside your house. So the computer is like all the gears you ever wanted inside of this thing, which is otherwise just a fan in a box. That is a metal box with a big fan in it and a little bit of refrigerant that's absorbing heat. It's like a magic little chemical that goes into vapor or into liquid at these special spots of pressure. Leave that physics aside. Adding a computer allowed it to go below freezing, speeding up the fan, speed it, speed it, speed it. So you can now heat at about to negative 30 Fahrenheit with most of the refrigerants that are out there. It's all about the computer. Now, people, prognosticators who are funded by the fossil fuels, the fooled and then the fools. You never know, show which, are you a fool or are you being the fooler? Are you the fooled? I don't know what to think, but man, the people who are out there publishing studies of how the grid's going to crash in the wintertime because of electrification are wrong because of the addition of computers. They usually run that study by running electric resistance at the peak of the wintertime, which is not necessary with current technology. That's one of the glaring errors you'll find in studies of winter electrification is what's the efficiency of your heat pump? Oh, you're not even using heat pumps? Oh, I see. We're just living in 20 years ago, huh? That's how you do your study, just do a time machine. So left hand, upper left hand corner here, Mr. Cool, neat product because it's a DIY if you want it to be. This is just an example of an inverter, computer, controlled heat pump. And what you're seeing in this graph, back in orange, over the course of a day, you're seeing the peak electrical draw in Sacramento for the average house of 700 houses before they electrified. And it was 3.9 kW of peak electricity draw happening about 4 in the afternoon. Okay. Now, after you add a heat pump, which have done thousands and thousands and thousands, SMUD long ago, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, SMUD long ago committed to all electric everything. They were going for it, and they're going to take all the gas share away from PG&E. So they started electrifying, and they could see the results. You see now in gray, that is the summer peak after the electrification of they're putting in a heat pump, because the computer makes it more efficient in the summertime. So instead of 3.9 kW, they're at 3.4 kW. You go over to the left-hand side and you see now in blue the new winter peak. It starts happening about 7 in the morning as you heat up the house. That's a 3.3 kW peak. That is less than the summer peak, and that is less than the summer peak before electrification. The solution to the grid's problems was electrification of their of their AC system because the efficiencies are so much greater, and space heating in the winter doesn't actually trigger that large of a demand compared to air conditioning if you're using a good heat pump. There. Modern technology proven to solve winter problems within the existing grid they have now. Okay. Now, I've hopefully demonstrated that 100 amps is enough and that electrifying is good for the grid. Demonstrably good for the grid. Already happened good for the grid. Now, if you have, like my friend Lonnie, a double wide manufactured home with a 100 amp service, and you've now got a pregnant wife, and you're trying to real quick build another little ADU next to it, so it can be a little nest and have it for your brand new nice little house, and your family will stay in the double wide. But you have only a 100 amp service, and you're trying to do two houses. This effort won us a $325,000 prize, shared all around, of course. But we did it. We pulled off 100 amps, two houses. How we did it, I'm going to go into a little more detail, but just briefly, from the left to the right, lower left-hand corner, that's a heat pump that doesn't use electric resistance. It's just a cold climate heat pump. You stick it on the wall. Plug into any outlet nearby. It's 120 volt. Same thing with his kitchen appliances. The stove on top of the countertop plugs into just a single outlet. Normal outlet's a 120 volt stove. We've got multiple 120 volt induction two plate hobs, which you'll find everywhere in the world if you go traveling. All over the place. People just plug it into any outlet in the wall. 120 volt, no electric resistance. Well, I'll take that back a little bit. Is this A.O. Smith tank here. You see the Ream tank over to the right? That has no electric resistance, but both of them at peak don't use more than 900 watts. You plug them into any outlet, 120 volt. Same with your one washer dryer. We have a Mr. Cool ducted heat pump that goes underneath. They installed it themselves because the lines come pre-charged with the refrigerant, and you just plug and play, as opposed to having a refrigerant technician show up to flare the copper, evacuate it with nitrogen, put more refrigerant in, test it for leaks, and still have a 3 to 10% leakage rate of, high global potential refrigerants. Neocharge, this little black box here, this is a transfer switch. Back in the 1930s, when Berkeley was building all electric homes with 30 amps, people had these Frankenstein's like transfer switches, chunk chunk, to turn on different appliances in their homes. This has got a computer and it's a little tiny box and does the same thing so that you can run the dryer at the same time as the stove. Or if the stove's using too much, it turns off the dryer, or vice versa, if you wish. You can turn off the water heater if you had a 240 volt one. We didn't. We made really efficient water heaters. So the big draws really were the dryer and well, one of the dryers. This combined two in one dryer I'll get into. Okay, stoves. This is coming out on the left-hand side, Summit stove. This is the pilots. I know, Vanessa, you're smiling because you're trying to get Summit to come down and show off these stoves. Really exciting. Then copper stoves is the first one they ever built for a customer. It's going into my house at the time. We've got 36 of them installed in local tribal community homes. This one I've taken out of my house. I'm excited about the Summit stove coming in, and I'm selling it to a chef fluencer from the Building Decarb Coalition. So the idea here is that you can plug them into the 120 volt outlet next to their stove. No rewiring. On the left-hand side, it's being done only with efficiency, 3 induction burners, a super insulated oven. The one on the right, not being done with efficiency, being done with a battery, a 5 kilowatt hour battery. You can cook off grid for a few days on it. The one on the right, at $6,000. It's because of the battery. The one on the left, that's $1,500. That's what it costs without a battery. And so you get your choices. The one on the left, that's 1800 watts. You can never use more than that. The one on the right, you can't use the amount of energy that it can produce. Like 10,000 watts, you're gonna burn everything you're cooking. So why would you do that? Just as a side note here, because one small gas burner on high, like an apartment complex stove, just the cheapest stove you've ever seen, you turn that on high, that one burner, and that equals the same amount of nitrous oxides, muffler exhaust, that you'd get from more, 4.5 Ford Fusions. Left-hand side, that's the study of gas NOx, nitrous oxides, caustic, burns your lungs, gives you asthma and lung disease and heart attacks and cancer. The one on the right, that's a national lab testing the muffler exhaust from a Ford Fusion. Did the chemistry math back and forth. We're like, oh my God, the catalytic converter in a Ford Fusion car, and cars are still the like huge source of smog, right? But that catalytic converter is taking out enough NOx that your stove, which does not have a catalytic converter, and your hood is maybe 30% efficient at taking NOx out, whatever the pollution is, they're very ineffective. You just fill your whole house with car muffler exhaust. You're like, is that real? And I'm like, I'm telling you, man, this is real. On the right-hand side of this graph, this is the most dirty air in the whole country. You go outside, stand next to a DC highway, and you're inhaling about 70, 60 parts per billion of NOx. You stand in your kitchen next to your gas stove, you're going to start at 30 and go up to 200 just cooking a gas dish. And you can go up to like 400 and such. So Brett Singer, Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, I'm asking him this quick interview. I say, hey, Brett, an April 2019 New Yorker article about the hidden air pollution in our homes said there's actual smog formation in our kitchens after 20 to 30 minutes of cooking on a gas stove. Were you exaggerating? And Dr. Singer says, no. If you add pollutants like nitrous oxide from gas stoves to the cooking emissions, I mean, just like the oil, the water vapor, it is a mixture deserving of the name like smog. And I'd say then, hey, Bruce Mills, you wrote in the New York Times in May of 2019 that nitrogen dioxide can easily reach levels that would be legal outdoors. Bruce Mills is one of the people credited with shutting down the most coal plants in our country. He's a true champion. Mills is like, yeah, nitrogen dioxide is one of the main pollutants from gas stoves, and it is both linked to childhood asthma, pretty worsens problems. That is why the EPA set the outdoor standards. It's why we have the standards for nitrogen dioxide. We just don't have the standards for indoor stoves. But boy, are they dirty. Okay, that's your stove talk. Now, gonna move over to water heaters. And if you want to talk about this, I can go on and on. I'm just here to talk about the heavy ups, right? So here are water heaters, and you have options. Now, if you want to avoid having to rerun a circuit, on the left-hand side, you can see a 120 volt heat pump water heater, right? From Rheem. I showed you that already. And then there's the one from A.O. Smith. And there are other manufacturers too. There's like 6 different manufacturers. I'm just showing you a sample. Then over on the East Coast, Stiebel Eltron makes an awesome product. It's energy efficient and the rest of it, but it's 240 volt, which means you're going to have to run a new circuit to it. Same thing with Bradford White. A lot of other manufacturers that make these hybrid, they have like a pretty strong electric resistance element, 30 amps. You know, that's if I took you back to that slide, you'd see 30 amps is the peak in most homes. So you can see that like that can be the peak. It's just a water heater running with maybe some lights going. And then on the right-hand side, this is a CO2 heat pump water heater. Why do I mention that? It can operate at much colder temperatures. And in Japan, where they take these sitting tubs, over in rural parts of Japan, they can't afford propane. You burn so much propane to fill a sitting tub. And so they invented a whole new type of heat pump just for Japanese sitting tubs. And they are the #1 heat pump for using in all of our country for apartment complexes. They are so kick-ass. Pardon my language. But these things, one of these things can run like 7 to 12 apartments. This little tiny box. And I do that, like 7 tiny houses in a row. Um, so they are a real muscular heat pump water heater for houses that can be used for apartments as well. There. Um, those are all options. And from the left-hand side in wattage, just so like this is 500 watts, the Rheem. The A.O. Smith, that's 900 watts. The Stiebel Eltron, that's 2250 watts. The Bradford White, that's 4500 watts. But then you go back to the Sanco 2, the CO2 one, that's only 900 watts again. It is a 240 volt, which is higher power. Japan uses 240 volt mostly. But that one's sort of a breakthrough. It has a super efficient refrigerant in CO2. Uses half as much energy to do the same job. as all the other refrigerants. Okay, hot tubs, swimming pools. These are common triggers for service upgrades in relatively affluent households. If you want to put in an electric, like you're going to be a good boy, good girl, right? Go all electric. So you're trying to get ones that have computers in them. Simple as that. All these ones. Fibropool, you can just buy that online, Amazon, Doheni's, SwimMax, Arctic, that's a really nice brand out of Canada. They know how to do heat pumps and hot tubs. Aquacal, that's out of Florida. It's really our world's largest heat pump water heater company in Florida. They make them for Olympic pools. They make them called icebreakers, so you can take your swimming pool at 80 degrees Fahrenheit when it's 25 degrees outside. You know, so you have a full range of options for hot tubs and swimming pools with computers in them so that don't use electric resistance and they're super efficient. Let's go for it. No need to have a service upgrade. Washers and, well, the dryer. Laundry dryers can be a 30 amp draw. That's a common electric resistance draw for a dryer. It's big, very big. So if you want to electrify your house without a service upgrade, one of the easiest things to do, if you have that 30 amp service to the dryer, is to reuse it, which I'll be doing. I'll be putting in a 240 volt ductless mini split for my rental house, the house I'm renting because I'm a divorced dad. And I'm working with the landlord to electrify it as I'm moving in. Got the water heater already done. Thank you, Renai. So the HVAC system is going to share the same circuit as the laundry dryer. I'm going to put in a circuit splitter, the NeoCharge like I showed you. And I have a condensing washer dryer there, this one on the left-hand side. Ta-da! So it's going to be a second dryer, actually, because I can keep the first one plugged in. So a condensing washer dryer, common all over the world. Number one machine you're going to find out there traveling is a one machine that does washing and drying. Space efficient, works in all the retrofits, plugs into any old outlet in the wall. Then in the middle, this is a 30 amp electric resistance dryer heat pump. So like how I mentioned, water heaters and HVAC systems can have a heat pump and an electric resistance element. That's what this has too. So it's not power efficient, but it is energy efficient. It's mostly going to work in a heat pump. But if you go to the right-hand side, this is both. This is power efficient and energy efficient. It's a heat pump, but it doesn't have electric resistance backup. And it's a combined machine. So it does both washing and drying, and it does it fast and quiet and really, really well. People love these LGs. GE has one, like there's a bunch out there. I'm just gonna say LG is by far and away recommended. I have no financial involvement with anyone, by the way, as I say these things. This is my opinion. Okay. Real story. Rich people in the Bay Area trying to electrify their house to be good boys and girls. And they're like, oh, but we're adding a second pool house for our guests. And we have outside, and we have to add the swimming pool heater, and we have to have outside lighting and a barbecue. And they're like, and that's going to trigger us to go from 200 amps, which is way more than enough, to 400 amps, which should be for like a commercial mall. And that's what their house is about to get. And they hire us to help them out. And I'm like, hey, folks, why don't instead of you putting in a really high voltage, high power outside heater, why don't you get some of these plug-in types for $100 or $280, like a whole little table for your canapé and your crudité, and you stick it on the table and your knees are warm. Like a nice little knee heater. You just plug it into any old outlet. You don't have to do the thing on the right, the Bromic Platinum Connection 240 volt, to just blast people with heat. You could just use it efficiently. You could have your party outside and have some of these plug-in devices. Chill out. For the barbecue, similarly, Weber makes a fantastic barbecue that you plug into any old outlet. There's a whole bunch of them that if you see here it says volts amps and it says 120 volt or 110 volt, that's the same thing, by the way. So those three options there, you're going to find, by the way, electric barbecues on almost every boat. You're not supposed to have open flames on boats. I know you guys, people who like to play on your toy boat, you probably know that you need to have an electric barbecue. Then you have the plug-in 240 volt versions you find at the resort in Hawaii, like I did, like Electric Chef, you know? Those are the ones that trigger service upgrades or heavy ups. And so you can get really nice barbecues that you just plug into any old outlet and you use your existing wiring and your existing service. Okay, I showed you a small version of this, and I'm now a big picture for you. These are transfer switches, like da-da, like Frankenstein monster style, but they're little tiny little monster switches. They're stuck inside the boxes with a computer. So the one on the left, this is an example of a whole product class that shares electricity between electric dryers and car chargers. The Neocharge in the middle, that's their favorite thing to do also. Plug in a car charger in one outlet and an electric dryer in the other. Those two use a similar amount of power, but I've also seen them used by friends and myself to balance stoves and water heaters or stoves and dryers or water heaters, that blah, blah, blah. Any of those big 30 amp loads, up to 50 amp loads, you can plug into Neocharges or the Simple Switch thing out of Ohio. And this is it doesn't allow two things to operate at the same time, which the two devices on the left-hand side can. It's a simple transfer switch, hence its name. But in San Francisco, they won't let you put in a NeoCharge. They're like, no computers. Can you imagine that in San Francisco? No computer assists for your transfer switch. You have to use a simple switch. We only want straightforward transfer switches. So it's important to say, like, depending upon your jurisdiction, you need to know that there's a variety of these simple little boxes. They're essentially like a plug strip, but for 240-volt high power devices, you can plug multiple things into one outlet.
Hey, Sean,
Yes, sir.
quick question about the splitters. I've always wondered how does it work if you have the two things in very different parts of the house? Like your car's in the garage and your dryer is in a different room.
It doesn't work that easily, but you have to understand that a 240-volt line doesn't have an outlet on it usually, right? It is a direct wire device. At the end of it, you have wires that you wire in. So in that context, you're just going to be running this wire, not relying upon the manufacturer to deliver a 6-foot wire or a 12-foot wire. You, no matter what, with your electric resistance dryer and your car charger, you're always going to be running a custom length of wire. So at that point, if you're going to have to run a custom wire, you're going to put that box someplace that's convenient. And that's how you do it. It's it it would be harder if these were 120-volt devices that came with standard plug lengths and you had to do like extension cords and nonsense. But in this case, the custom wiring just means you plug it in wherever it's the right spot, where there's the existing, probably where there's the existing 230-volt outlet, and then you run the other devices wire to that place, and you plug in your NeoCharge or Simple Switch, etc., and plug both things into it. Does that answer your question, Bob?
Thanks, Sean. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this is just a bigger version of that. This is where you plug your whole house in. On the left-hand side, a span panel you can put your 100 amp service, and you can put in 400 amps of loads. You can send a rocket to the moon. You have just so much available power there because people don't actually use 100 amps even with their 100 amp service, peaking out at 32 or 40 or 50. So just in the rarest of cases that you actually got to 100 amps, you could have one appliance turn off, like your electric resistance water heater or something like that. On the right-hand side, that's a lumen sub panel. And they make those so that you can, like for 20 amps and 30 amps and 50 amps, that you then plug those into a main panel. But the same idea, a little computer will allow you to run all the things at once unless you are, pardon me, getting up to the 80% threshold on the device, and then it'll start shutting something off that you chose ahead of time, what you want turned off. So you have control, and it'll almost never ever happen. So last option, one other big thing that triggers heavy ups, I just love that name, is installing solar. Vanessa and I got to work on this for quite a while, and there are real solutions that people should be thinking about strongly. If you, basically, your 100 amp services can support 4 kilowatts of solar on the roof. There's some math that I could explain there, but that's what you're allowed to install for the National Electrical Code into your panel. The panel says no more than 4 kilowatts of solar up on the roof. A kilowatt, by the way, is about 2 sheets of plywood. If you're like, how big is this? You could think, well, it's 8 sheets of plywood worth of solar panels. The average solar array installed in the country is about 5 kilowatts. It's close to the average size array. I don't know. But anyway, that's what you can do is 4 kilowatts, unless you get a Solar Edge or similar clipping inverter, which can allow you to install up to 15 kW. And it's just going to turn off the extra solar when it goes past the threshold of what can, by code, go into your panel. So it means you're producing more solar in the wintertime, in the spring, and the fall. You're probably not ever reaching your 4 kilowatt threshold because of the season. But during the hot part of the summer, the sunny part, that's when you're going to start clipping off solar. And people usually with a clipping inverter would put like a 5 or 6 kilowatt system on a 4 kilowatt clipping inverter. So it's just a little bit that clipped off. And most of the year they're still ahead. So you do a little bit of math, you're like, well, how much extra solar for me to still be ahead? So that's one strategy, clipping inverters. You can use your 100 amp service, no trigger to 200 amp service. Another one is the connector. The rules are around what you can install at the panel. The panel is this delicate little device with little tiny switches in it, and you don't want to add too much electricity to start a fire. However, you have a much thicker pieces of metal that you can connect a solar array into at the panel where the electrical service comes in from the street. The big wire. There's big pieces of metal there. And so they make what are called meter collars, like Connector makes one, where you take off the meter and you stick in this little electrical connection device and you put the meter back on. And that's where your solar array plugs in, or that's where your really fast charging EV can plug in. These meter collars. So meter collars have to be approved usually by the utility, even though it shouldn't. Like you're not touching, well, you're touching their meter, but they own the meter, you own the box. So it's like, I'm adding something to my box. And they're like, you're adding something to our meter. And you're like, we're both right. You're wrong though. So anyway, they want to control this, and that's the deal. So solar edge clipping inverters or other clipping inverters, that's the everyone approves it strategy, just so you know. If you want to get all the power out, then connecting it at the meter and working something out with your utility, or they may already have the relationship that they need. And that's it. I wanted to respect all your all time. And then I saw in the chat, I don't know, some questions here. Like Jeremy Good, you say, laundry is often in basements of single-family homes in this area, which may be a distance from the driveway and garage. The cost of running wire for a 30 amp splitter may not pencil out. Um, well, okay. When you say the word pencil out, I'm trying to think compared to the cost of what? Like if you have a dryer there. I think what you're saying is that where the panel is probably closer to where, say, your car charger is, the new car charger that you might be able to balance with that circuit splitter. Now imagine though that your 30 amp wire coming all the way from the basement over to your circuit breaker panel, you put a neocharge or something like that right there, your dryer buddy, right where the wire is about to get to that circuit breaker panel. That's in your garage, maybe, and that's right next to your EV. And so now you've got your EV charger on the wall, plugged into the circuit splitter, neocharge, simple switch, dryer buddy, da 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 does. You plug it in right there, and that's where your dryer is plugging in. And so now you've made it so it is kind of a consolidated electrical connection close to your panel box. It's just one of the options. You know, yes, sometimes it might not make sense, but
Um,
go ahead.
no, sorry. It's just that we're coming up to the top of the hour, and
Yes.
this has been so amazing, Sean. I've heard offline so many amazing comments
Oh,
about this presentation. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I also want to encourage anybody who has any questions on this presentation or on anything else to use the Google group so that we can get a useful forum going and everybody can learn from the questions
will you
of
can
yes,
you add me to the Google, your guys'?
sure,
Because I don't think I'm on it,
gladly.
I will absolutely add you.
And
I'm, I,
I know we're never going to be able to top Sean's spotlight, but if you have any recommendations for or any desires for specific topics, please let us know. We look forward to seeing you all on the other side of the holidays. We wish you merry everything, and thank you, all of you, for all the work you're doing to decarbonize the homes of the DC region. Thank you all.
take care. I sent my slides, and
Thank you so much,
don't be a
Sean.
stranger.
Thank